Well, I thought I'd talk to you guys today about the story of Jonah, and it's found in the book of Jonah in the Bible, and it's got some important lessons I think to learn. And I was thinking about it from the perspective of working a couple colts that I had out yesterday, and well, actually one colt and one more broke horse. So I just wanted to share with you guys some things that I'm learning and or pondering on a little bit. I think there's some important lessons we can learn from the horses, but there's some more important lessons that we can learn from the Bible and from the story of Jonah. One of the great things that I've seen that God does is He uses all the things around us, whether it's in your work that you do every day or just going through life. You find all kinds of examples. God puts His principles forward in His Word, but those principles are supported by the world around us. And I think if you look around you, you'll see that God has built into our world lots of examples of principles that fit His Word. I've learned a lot just working with horses about how I should be, about how I should act in relation to God, and what it means to be a follower of Him, what it means to be obedient to Him. And so I want to share with you the story of Jonah first of all. The Lord gave this message to Jonah, son of Amittai. Get up and go to the great city of Nineveh. Announce my judgment against it, because I have seen how wicked its people are. But Jonah got up and went the opposite direction to get away from the Lord. He found a ship leaving for Tarshish. He bought a ticket and went on board, hoping to escape from the Lord by sailing to Tarshish. But the Lord hurled a powerful wind over the sea, causing a violent storm and threatening to break the ship apart. Fearing for their lives, the desperate sailors shouted to their gods for help and threw their cargo overboard to lighten the ship. But all this time Jonah was sound asleep down in the hold. So the captain went down after him. "How can you sleep at a time like this?" he shouted. "Get up and pray to your God. Maybe He will pay attention to us and spare our lives." Then the crew cast lots to see which of them had offended the gods and caused the terrible storm. When they did this, the lots identified Jonah as the culprit. "Why has this awful storm come down on us?" they demanded. "Who are you, and what is your line of work? What country are you from? What is your nationality?" Jonah answered, "I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the land." The sailors were terrified when they heard this, for He had already told them he was running away from the Lord. "Oh, why did you do it?" they groaned. And since the storm was getting worse all the time, they asked him, "What should we do to you to stop the storm?" "Throw me into the sea," Jonah said, "and it will become calm again. I know that this terrible storm is all my fault." Instead, the sailors rowed even harder to get the ship to land, but the stormy sea was too violent for them, and they couldn't make it. Then they cried out to the Lord, Jonah's God. "O Lord," they pleaded, "don't make us die for this man's sin, and don't hold us responsible for his death. O Lord, you have sent this storm upon him for your own good reasons." Then the sailors picked Jonah up and threw him into the raging sea, and the storm stopped at once. The sailors were awestruck by the Lord's great power, and they offered him a sacrifice and vowed to serve him. Now the Lord had arranged for a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was inside the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. So on the one hand, I got Monty. Now Monty is Montelius is he's a long 2-year-old, so his actual date of birth is June, so he'll be 3 in June. And I started him last fall, and got kind of wet to where I couldn't ride much because the arena got deep, and so I put about 10 rides on him and then just put him away for the winter and figured to let him grow up a little. I've ridden him about twice since I've been back, so he's probably got about 12 rides total on him. I just took him out and just wanted to go through just various things, like life type things. I wanted to go through, some water, cross some logs, cross some rocks, climb some hills, just do some things that are just functional for a horse, that a horse needs to be able to do. And my other horse that I was riding is Cricket, and Cricket's a horse that I don't really know her age on the dot, but she's an aged mare. I would reckon she's probably somewhere under 10, but not a whole lot under 10. And she's a horse that a friend gave me several years ago, and I've ridden her. Oh shoot, we've probably got over 1,000 miles in the last year and a half, 2 years, and been in the branding pen with her, been to some shows, won a few things on her here and there. Just a good kind of horse, nothing fancy, not papered or anything like that, but a horse that has been real good about being obedient to me and giving me her best try. Okay, so we're going to pick back up in chapter 3, and I'll scroll here so you can kind of see the other side if you want to read that too, about Jonah's repentance while he was in the belly of a giant fish. Then the Lord spoke to Jonah a second time. Get up and go to the great city of Nineveh and deliver the message I have given you. This time Jonah obeyed the Lord's command and went to Nineveh, a city so large that it took 3 days to see it all. On the day Jonah entered the city, he shouted to the crowds, 40 days from now, Nineveh will be destroyed. The people of Nineveh believed God's message, and from the greatest to the least, they declared a fast and put on burlap to show their sorrow. So I have these two horses, and as I was working with them, the differences, to some people they'd be subtle. To me, they were huge. And to, I think, people who ride much would see these differences. And so I just wanted to show these to you. So as we got Monty trucking down the road, he well, he's distracted by everything, and sometimes he's willful, sometimes he's scared, sometimes he's belligerent. All these different things occur just going through what I was asking him to do, going down the trail here. And he'd get to a creek and he'd kind of think about it, and he'd have to think twice. He wasn't really sold out on just following what I told him to do. So when I think about how that relates back to Jonah, when God gave him a direct command, he chose the opposite. And yet later he chose to follow God's command. And my wife said something to me the other day that she had heard from someone else about buying your ticket for Nineveh. And Jonah went and he bought his ticket for Tarshish. In other words, he completely decided that he was going to do that. It was a premeditated disobedience to God. It wasn't something that he just thought on the spur of the moment, well, I'm going to just do the wrong thing now. No, he gave it some good thought and came up with this idea that he should do his own thing. Well, Monty, as I ride him, oftentimes he thinks about things, and I give him the time to think. And I even give him the opportunity to make the wrong choice. And you can see that, I'll allow him to make the wrong choice, but then there's a correction. Then there's a time of really coming around to my way of thinking. And the way that I do that is I put difficulty in his life. Maybe it's a bump on the rein or a bump with my leg, or maybe I just flat out get after him. And my role as his leader is just to set things up so that he finds the right way. Now, Cricket, on the other hand, if you watch how she moves, it's on a light neck rein. I don't have to move my hand a whole lot. I can keep it pretty still, and she'll respond in a big way. Not always correctly, but oftentimes correctly. And the cool thing that's really fun to watch is watch her move. She moves with confidence. She moves in a lot different way. Monty's got to feel things out. He's got to make sure in his own mind that he's okay with what I'm telling him to do. Cricket is confident in what I tell her to do, and she does it because she knows that, one, she's learned I have her best interest at heart, and I'm not going to put her in a bad situation. It may be a tough situation, but it's not a situation that's going to really harm her in who she is, and it may cause some physical discomfort, but she has come to an understanding that she needs to buy her ticket for Nineveh. She needs to commit fully to what I ask her to do. And the cool thing about doing what God tells you to do is, and following through with obedience and selling out entirely for His purpose, for what He tells you to do in His Word, is that when you do that, you can move confidently. You can approach all kinds of things that you don't think you could do on your own. Just the way Jonah never thought that he could affect Nineveh, and yet he goes in there and changes the hearts of all those people through the power of the Lord. Now, I try to be the best horseman I can possibly be, but I still make mistakes, and I put cricket into binds sometimes. It was a mistake on my part. I shouldn't ask her to do it, and asked her to turn around, and she gladly did it, ran right into a tree because I wasn't paying attention. But the thing about God is He has a perspective that we don't have, and He has the ability to see those things, and He will not give us more than He wants us to handle, or more than we can handle. Ultimately, we need to buy our tickets for Nineveh, not for Tarshish. And that means to sell out with reckless abandon to God's principles and to His commands that are in His Word. And we can show our love for Him by being obedient. If you enjoy learning some of these things the same way I do, just click subscribe, and we'll be on this journey together, and I'll continue to share some of the things that God's teaching me through the horses and through this lifestyle.